Be happy, happy. Got nothing to do? Wanna have some fun?
Hey. What's in Dad's basement?
As darkness abhors light, and light abhors dark, the others will not, cannot join forces. There is much you do not know, and much you never will.
Hey kids, the game I'd like to tell you about today is called Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. So, the reason I want to go back and do a Dad's Basement on Eternal Darkness is because there's a new company called Precursor Games, made up of some alumni from Silicon Knights, including Dennis Dyack, that is trying to launch a Kickstarter starting July 25th to put out the spiritual successor to the game, entitled Shadow of the Eternals. Even to this day, Eternal Darkness remains a unique experience, one that hasn't been duplicated. One that I, myself, would very much like to see updated with all the latest advancements in graphics and what's possible in a horror game in the HD generation, something that I don't really think we've seen tapped in the way that is possible. If you like, make sure you check out part 1 to this video, where we go into Lovecraftian horror in movies and TV and games. So, that being said, on with the show. So I'm not sure I can convey what I like about the story and the characters of Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem, without spoiling it for you. So let's get that out of the way. Eternal Darkness has an interesting multicultural and multi-gender and really multi-era cast. It is, as the game itself states, the story of humanity.
This is not my story, nor even the story of the Roivas family. It is the story of humanity. Like it or not, believe it or not, as you will. Your perceptions will not change reality, but simply color it. Humanity has been on the edge of extinction for 2 millennia, ignorant of so much and dependent on so few. The Guardians grow restless, their time once again near. Whether by fate or misfortune, my family has crossed their path, and they didn't take kindly to it. Their attention turns to my granddaughter, for she is the last of my line, and the last hope for humanity.
It starts out with our female lead, Alex Roivas, who is played by Jennifer Hale, who people may know as Female Commander Shepard, or perhaps Naomi from the Metal Gear Solid series. We join her in the year 2000 AD, and she gets a call at 3:33 in the morning to rush out to her grandfather's estate out in Rhode Island, because he has unfortunately died. At that time, we meet Inspector LaGrasse, who is investigating the case, who is named after an inspector from a Lovecraft story, in fact. And Inspector LaGrasse very quickly reveals his incompetency by springing Alex's grandfather's headless corpse on her around a corner all of a sudden. And so Alex becomes rightfully upset and is pissed off and is going to investigate the case herself because of the obvious incompetency of the Rhode Island police force as represented by Inspector LaGrasse, which is just as well because he's clearly the worst character model in the game. Maybe a holdover from the fact that this game had been in development for so long and had originally been in development on N64. Inspector LaGrasse has got to go. Weirdly, Inspector LaGrasse, played by Earl Bowen, The police psychologist from the Terminator movies?
Yes?
Yes?
Pitfall and Stampede by Activision?
Sure.
For Intellivision.
No. Activision doesn't make video games for
Do too. Pitfall, that challenging jungle adventure game that dares you to find the treasure, and Stampede, that rope them doggies roundup game.
Negative.
Pitfall and Stampede by Activision for...
Activision. We put you in the game.
So, Alex starts poking around the house a little bit and solves a clock puzzle involving the time 3:33, revealing a secret door leading into a chamber and a room with lots of pretty cool untreated wood texture around it, where she finds the Tome of Eternal Darkness, a book bound in human skin and bone and sinew, containing forbidden ancient knowledge from the ages. And as she reads the book, she finds she can understand the writing on the pages, even though it's in an ancient, indecipherable language. So as Alex is first reading the book, she reads the story of Pius Augustus, a Roman centurion from 26 BC on campaign in Persia looking for relics for the emperor, who unwisely follows some voices calling his own name into a Stonehenge-like formation emanating power and transports to another place, a temple, the Forbidden City in the Middle East, in Persia, one of the game's locations. Pius encounters some undead there and has to kill them, and continues killing until he finds a statue of himself, which he is required to hack apart and thus learn the targeting system of the game. Eventually, as Pius is discovering the temple, he finds a display upon which there are 3 ancient relics, and he decides upon one to claim, and this decision affects many things throughout the game, but you have no idea what you're doing at the time. I'd recommend green to start, personally. We'll talk about that later. Of course, grabbing the artifact is bad for Pius. In fact, he is overcome with energy of one of the ancients and killed and transformed into a leech, an undead warlock, and the primary antagonist for the rest of the game, the traitor to humanity.
Eons have passed since then, and I have learned much. I was once as naive as a child, but now my mind is sharp. With the power of Xelatoth, I can now read the thoughts of others and make them raving mad with a mere suggestion. Face me, and you shall surely perish.
So then, Alex is reading another page from the Tome of Eternal Darkness, and we find out about Elia, who was a girl who lived in Cambodia, and her story takes place in 1159 AD. And she's sitting in this temple reading stories of ancient gods and magic and everything, and dreaming about it happening to her, and you be careful what you wish for, because then the temple closes up around her. She's got to fight through monsters and traps, learn about the binding of Mantarok, which is part of Pius's overall plan, his 2,000-year summoning spell to bring back the ancient that he serves into our world, to bring about its own reality. So Elia learns about the binding of Mantarok, meets Pius, is spared, but eventually ends up being killed by Pius, after she is granted the essence of Mantarok, which she has to hide and guard as a corpse inside the temple there for all of eternity.
You are one of the chosen many, flesh and blood. It is now your destiny to fight the eternal darkness. I give you a gift in return for an obligation. The gift is your life, sweet dancer. The obligation is this. You hold one of Mantarok's hearts, the essence of the corpse god. To some, it is a source of great power. From those people, you must defend it, lest they use it to destroy what little brightness your world has left in it. Guard it well.
As a result of learning from Ellie's chapter, Alex learns how to solve the candle puzzle and finds another page where she learns out about Anthony. Anthony, who lived in 814 AD in France, and who was a messenger who was tasked to deliver a scroll to Charlemagne, who lived at the period of time in the Dark Ages, but might have represented a shift of power and ability to break the Dark Ages a little earlier than actually happened, and who therefore was targeted by Pius as someone to be assassinated by the forces of the Eternal Darkness. So Anthony, being overly curious, reads the scroll. He himself gets the curse, and it's zombie curse. Anthony is cursed to become a zombie throughout this chapter as he fights through monsters. Let's see. Anthony is the first to be introduced to the dark temple of the Tome of Eternal Darkness, where the floor is screaming and the book is held in the creepy hand. And it's actually a very nice set piece. Anthony is the first to discover trappers, these weird little jittery creatures which will transport you to the trapper dimension, which can be full of bonuses and horrors, dangers, and pluses depending on how it plays out. Anthony is also the first character, unfortunate enough, to discover a horror, a new type of creature which is rather large and difficult to deal with. And on top of all that, Anthony is the first to discover a circle of power and to be able to use the Tome of Eternal Darkness to cast spells. And as a result, the spells that he learns are encapsulated in the Tome of Eternal Darkness, and each subsequent character learns up to that point and starts from that point in terms of development of spellcasting in the game. So Anthony fights through the horrors of the church and is finally able to get a hold of the key from the bishop to get into the chamber where he's heard Charlemagne talking this whole time, only to find he's just moments too late. Charlemagne has been cursed as Anthony himself succumbs to zombie curse, and then the bishop himself is revealed to be a creature heretofore unseen, a bone thief, a creature which inhabits the skins of humanity and bends their actions to the will of the ancients.
You are a fool for trying to save him, Anthony. His fate was decided many centuries ago, as is the fate of this world. Despite your faith, there is little to save you from the power of Zealous.
So one of the things Anthony learned, besides how to be a zombie, was the enchant item spell, which then Alex knows, which she then is able to use to repair that pesky, broken second floor key, Once she gets up there, she's able to get another chapter page, and we learn about Karim. Karim's story takes place in 565 AD in Persia. Karim's a lovesick fool. He's in love with Chandra, who sends him after some treasures that she's heard about and dreamed about and can't forget about. So he goes wandering off into the Forbidden City, where he battles zombies and horrors and bone thieves, and of course has his own visit to the Temple of the Tome of Eternal Darkness with the Screaming Floor, at which point he learns additional magic as well. Karim's pretty badass, gets a hold of a Ramdao, cuts down a lot of bad guys. He's a heavy battle section. Finally, Karim succeeds, gets through to the artifact, but finds out that he shouldn't touch it when the ghost of his dead paramour shows up. Lets him know that she cheated on him while he was away, and then the person that she cheated on him with, who himself was cheating on somebody, her that she was cheating on him had her flayed with knives, and her ghost therefore visits in order to let him know that he needs to become the guardian of that particular essence of the artifact in order to avoid the eternal darkness that will doom the entire human race, leaving Karim sort of a bitter, jilted ghost for all eternity.
Only when that is complete will we be together.
Sacrifice? Why should I do anything for you? You lied to me, betrayed me, and you really don't look so good anymore.
You must forget the past. Despite who you are now, you will also become something more, just as I have. But the sacrifice must be made. We must remain here and guard the artifact. Dark things will come to claim it, and you must be strong to keep it from them. Without your sacrifice, the world will fall into eternal darkness.
The things I do for love.
So Alex is able to put 2 and 2 together and duplicate Karim's move, enchant a blade, and use it to open a door, and find another chapter page where she learns about her own ancestor, Maximilian Roivas. Now, Maximilian Roivas lived in 1760 AD in Rhode Island in the Roivas estate. That was his father's mansion, and he would find notes from his father about his father's own investigation into unusual occurrences. Solving a puzzle in the mansion, he uncovers a secret passage to the same hidden chamber where all these antiquities are kept. After he does that, however, and discovers the Tome of Eternal Darkness hidden there, all hell breaks loose in the mansion. Horrors are dropping out of the ceiling. As soon as he gets out of there, his own servants are attacking, and if you fight back, it turns out that they're infested with bone thieves. It's a bad scene all around. And he's not really the spryest guy. But he's fighting back, right? He's not going to let these servants attack him if they're full of bone thieves. He's fighting back, killing things, and stopping right there to give them an autopsy. And that's really a nice feature of the game.
Eyes? Rot their eyes. Their staring sees through your soul like looking through a window. And the lids, festooned with tiny hook-like teeth that gape and gnash. It doesn't make sense. No anatomy would form like that. But it has. Was it natural? How could it be? O unholy beast, thou must be killed, lest you corrupt my world. Have at thee! Have at thee!
So one of the things Max learns, picking up runes and codexes and what have you to put together magical spells, is the Reveal Invisible spell, which allows him to reveal the door to the hidden basement of the mansion.
Hey, Hey. What's in Dad's basement?
In the hidden basement of the mansion, he finds a doorway to the lost underground city of Anga, a city of an ancient race of giants, of advanced, inconceivable beings that were wiped out at some point years ago as part of Pius's plan to summon the ancient. He brought in all of the monsters of this ancient, their guardians and servants and zombies and trappers and blah 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 blah. And they swept over the city and killed all of its inhabitants and filled the streets with blood. And he stumbles upon this city and this scene and comes across a guardian of the ancient, a magical, horrible being that he must battle. And it's really one of the first major battles in the game. You finally defeat the thing, and he retreats back for help from the normal world and tells everybody what he saw. And they promptly lock him in an asylum to die. Because that's crazy, man. Nobody's gonna believe that.
The accursed beast was dead, but not without its toll on me. That was but one, and there was an entire city of them. I could not hope to fight them all alone. I knew I had to get help. I knew there was a way. I just had to find it.
I tried to tell them, but they wouldn't listen to me. Damn them. Damn their eyes. They didn't believe me. Strange creatures. The world in peril from unseen foes. The darkness. Instead, they jeered and threw me into this forsaken place. A place of empty souls and fevered thoughts, reeking of fetor and decay. Thinking me mad with delirium. The fools cast away their hopes of salvation, but locking me in this damned asylum. May the rats eat your eyes! I am now lost to your cause! The darkness comes! It will damn us all!
So, Maximilian Roivas was masterfully played by William Hootkins, which is an actor that you know, but that you don't know you know. William Hootkins played Munson, the assistant to Professor Zarkov in Flash Gordon.
Swear, Munson, I'll shoot!
Get shot or go up in that thing? What's the difference?
This way you'll be giving your life to save the Earth. Haven't you any spirit at all?
No!
He played Red Six, the character with the unfortunate name Porkins in Star Wars.
Eject! I can hold it. Pull up!
No, I'm all right.
He played one of the FBI guys in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
You see, over the last 2 years, the Nazis have had teams of archaeologists running around the world looking for all kinds of religious artifacts. Hitler's a nut on the subject. He's crazy. He's obsessed with the occult.
And he played Lieutenant Eckhart in Batman.
All right, get a good look. Shoot to kill. Know what I mean? All right, let's move out.
Eckhart! Think about the future.
And he really did a great job in this. The autopsy feature in particular is one of the hidden gems of the game. And scrounging those up and listening to them all is one of the features that allows you to enjoy replaying the game so much. So, Alex is able to use her new knowledge of the Reveal Invisible spell to reveal the dresser drawer, which she has the key for, able to open it up and get the next chapter page, and we jump forward 200 years and find out about another American, Dr. Edwin Lindsay, whose story takes place in 1983 in Cambodia, in that same temple in Cambodia. And this is our Indiana Jones alike character, whose chapter begins with a double cross by his benefactor, who goes by the name Paul Augustine, who is sort of obviously revealed to be Pius Augustus. So his chapter starts out with a big gun battle, and then it culminates in a battle with a gatekeeper, a new type of creature not seen before.
Guardians of Zelikoth, kill him!
Edwin's chapter is full of all kinds of traps and dangers as well, as he ventures deeper and deeper into the temple and uncovers its secrets. Edwin battles horrors and zombies and gatekeepers and trappers and the full selection of every creature seen so far. Edwin can also discover the summon trapper spell and actually be able to master the trapper. And in doing so, he can discover the optional Mantarok rune, which would unlock all sorts of magic options for the characters outside of the normal magic of the game. And this rune is entirely optional. You don't have to discover it. You don't necessarily need any of the spells that are modified by it. Eventually, Edwin penetrates all the way through into the temple and is threatened much in the same way Elia was by Pius. However, the power of Mantarok is obviously a little bit more present, and Pius gets blasted and sent away, at which point Edwin receives relay style the essence of Mantarok, the heart of Mantarok from Elia.
The veil of reality can only be pulled back so far, mortal. Take your stand and fight the darkness.
And then gifts that to Edward Roivas at the Roivas estate, which is quickly becoming known as the Gathering of Light, the place where the battle against the eternal darkness is coming to a head. So since Alex's vision of Edwin's adventure reveals the location of the essence of Mantarok within the mansion, she explores it and also finds a chapter page where she reads about Paul Luther, a Franciscan monk whose adventure takes place in 1485 in France in the Oublié Cathedral that we have seen before with Anthony. That's taking place during the time of the Inquisition. And Paul is unfortunate enough to come across a corpse of a murdered person and reports it immediately, upon which point he is immediately the first suspect for the murder. And at the time of the Inquisition, that's a pretty bad thing. However, he finds an ally in the custodian of the cathedral as they continue to investigate, and Paul penetrates deeper into the cathedral. He finds these monsters, etc., and the Tome of Eternal Darkness, and begins using magic in order to battle them. He eventually discovers the shield spell. In a devious, ironic twist, Paul discovers the zombie corpse of Anthony in a completely lightless, dank, under-stairs cellar room where he was left for centuries, and must defeat the continually respawning zombie corpse of Anthony, finally consecrating the poor individual and giving him a rest at last from his horrid fate. It is revealed that there is a black guardian guarding the essence of the ancient that is hidden inside the Oublié Cathedral. And Paul continues to adventure through solving a puzzle with an organ and being required to use a sacrificial knife on an effigy that appears to look like his only ally, the custodian, and which of course is revealed to have actually killed the custodian. Paul then adventures further, finds a unholy sacrificial altar where he discovers all this horrible revelation, then adventures finally further where he confronts the Black Guardian, armed with his base and his shield spell, ready for that boss battle, or so it would seem.
Your task, my liege and greater guardian, is to guard this place. Do not worry about this world. His kind yelps in terror at the sight of your mightiness. We will dispose of him ourselves.
If I am to guard this place, then I will do it as I see fit. Be gone, leave me, and I will guard this artifact as you have instructed.
So after learning about Paul's puzzle with the organ, Alex is able to solve a puzzle with a piano and get another chapter page where she learns about Roberto Bianchi, a architect who lived in 1460, whose tale takes place in the Middle East at the Forbidden City. He is captured by a hostile warlord who in reality is actually Pius, who is seen by another soldier for his true form earlier in the chapter, and thrown into the Forbidden City where he must survey the location to determine its suitability for them to build an unholy relic necessary for Pius' summoning spell. Well, Roberto has to adventure through all these monsters and horrible things, including gatekeepers and horrors and all the creatures that we've seen so far. Does his job, penetrates all the way through, and Karim then greets him to defend the artifact, and upon finding that Roberto is a chosen one, chooses not to kill him and rather to gift him with the artifact. Roberto does his job, survives all the way through, returns to the surface with news of what's inside the Forbidden City, only to have his reward for his job be a rather ignoble death as one of the first to lay the foundation for the unholy artifact, the Pillar of Flesh.
I am the Scourge of God, appointed to chastise you. since no one knows the remedy for your iniquity except me. You are wicked, but I am more wicked than you. So be silent. Now you, architect, you are about to make your largest contribution to this project.
Using the skills that Alex learned from Roberto, she's able to survey the area and find another chapter page, which teaches her about Peter Jacob, whose story takes place in 1916 in France at the Oubliette Cathedral during World War I, at a time when the giant church has been transformed into a field hospital and is littered with beds and nurses and patients writhing and moaning in pain. This field hospital is a creepy, shadow-ridden place with really effective lighting, and the place only gets the more creepier when all of a sudden there's a blackout, and then all the letters that Peter has been finding indicating that patients have been going missing, etc., suddenly start to make sense when all the nurses start killing everybody and the bone thieves start ripping out of them, and it's clear that the place is just an evil place. And Peter, therefore, adventures and explores through it and is able to restore power to the place and find additional magic spells, including magical attack, which he will need when he opens up the inner sanctum and engages in battle with the Black Guardian, which is an epic giant creature and boss battle in the game that goes in several stages before Peter is eventually able to prove himself amongst the ultimate badasses of Eternal Darkness, a club which includes Edwin Lindsay, who survived his experience. Yes, he slays the Black Guardian, is able to claim the essence of the Ancient, and then we see a scene years later where an aged Peter Jacob gifts the essence of the Ancient to Edward Roivas.
And that was how I came by it. I know it sounds crazy, but there you have it. The only proof I have is that statue. I'm somewhat of an expert on these things myself. An interest I developed a long time ago while I was a young man. Then you should keep it. Lord knows I have no interest in it. I am sure it's the cause of my sleeplessness.
So, Alex copies Peter's trick of fixing a bad fuse with a penny, and is able to get into a previously dark room of the mansion where she finds a basement key and another chapter page which mentions her own grandfather, Edward Roivas. And so his chapter takes place in 1952, as I mentioned, obviously at the Roivas estate / lost city of Anga. And he's spending the evening in his estate when suddenly he's visited by the ghost of Max Roivas, who wants vindication for his committal and waste of his life in an asylum, and guides Edward to the Tome of Eternal Darkness. Of course, Once Edward finds that, once again all hell breaks loose in the mansion, this time in the form of a vampire creature which starts roaming around the mansion, an invisible vampire creature which starts roaming around the mansion, draining and killing the various servants and turning them into enemies if you let it. So Edward is able to be the hero to some degree and save as many servants as he can, which are very grateful to him. And then it's going back to Enga. He finds his way into the basement and then into the city of Enga and starts battling horrors and guardians and all sorts of creatures as he ventures through the city, maybe occasionally having to use a little bit of the old liquid courage to help him out. And he eventually discovers and figures out that the city itself is one giant circle of power, and so Edward Roivas proves himself amongst the club of the Eternal Darkness badasses when he casts a giant dispel magic spell and kills every guardian in the city in a great setback to the ancients and Pius's plans. Well, Edward guides Alex via a letter into the basement where she finds his secret stash of lots and lots of liquid courage. And along with that, she finds a pickaxe where she's finally able to get into that strange-looking wall on the second floor where she saw the ghost of Max Roivas enter at one point, where she discovers evidence that Max at one point went nuts and killed all his servants, presuming them all to be bone thieves. Was not committed just for his tale of what happened, but for his actions as well. Strangely, though, upon investigating, Alex finds evidence of only 3 of the 4 corpses that would be present at the scene. And so within that room, Alex finds the stethoscope that she needs to crack the safe in the basement and find the final page that she didn't already have for the Tome of Eternal Darkness. The final chapter Alex reads in the Tome of Eternal Darkness, the final character she learns about is Michael Edwards, a Canadian firefighter in 1991 AD at the conclusion of the First Gulf War, who is putting out the oil well fires that were set in the region at the conclusion of that war. He is arming explosives that they use to put out those oil well fires when something goes wrong at one particular site where he has an accident and the explosion kills everyone but him.
We've got 500 pounds of 80% nitroglycerin-grade dynamite all in place. We're good to go.
Edward, you can pull your team back now. Get your team to a safe distance and we'll try to kill the fire.
Sure thing. Coming back now.
We're getting a pressure increase at the well cap. It's gonna tear itself apart. Hurry! Get your team out of...
And he finds the pillar of flesh, and Roberto comes forth and offers to him the essence of the ancient that he is holding. Michael then discovers the dead body of a soldier armed to the teeth right there, and his chapter ends up armed forces fight against multiple creatures, multiple gatekeepers, summoning horrors, and zombies, and trappers left and right as he adventures all the way through. Michael also gets to enjoy his own little Indiana Jones inspired section, solving a sort of familiar puzzle. Spooky temple time for him as well, gathering the Tome of Eternal Darkness and seeing the effigies of every other character there who has sacrificed himself in one way or another. He learns the bind spell, which is needed to get past certain puzzles, and as well kills the worms that rise up out of the pit, which we have seen before, but then goes one step further and plants explosives all over the place, blowing up the Forbidden City and the Pillar of Flesh, and proving himself also a member of the Eternal Darkness Club of Badasses. He also returns the essence of the ancient he has captured to the Gathering of Light.
Thanks for coming. I didn't think you'd show.
Look, I have no idea who you...
I think you do. Just as much as I know you know. Now let's be quick. The Guardians know where I am, and I won't last the night. But that's not the point.
What's this?
Something you need. Don't open it here. Only in privacy. They can sense it if it's not shrouded.
Is it one of the artifacts?
You must leave now. Look, there's something I have to do before they get to me. I can't protect you if they find us. Good luck.
So now, the planets are aligned, and it is time for Pius's 2,000-year-old summoning spell, setting the stage for summoning the great ancients into our world to come to fruition. Alex finds that this allows her to focus the telescopes within the house and open the basement cover and venture into Enga, where there are no longer any guardians since they have all been slain, but there is instead deadly traps and death magic, and eventually worm insanity magic for her to contend with, all while Pius is casting his spell and summoning his ancient into the world. So she then discovers that she can use the giant circle of power that is the city of Enga to cast a summon spell, and therefore, as Pius summons his ancient into the world, she summons the opposing ancient into the world, and there's a great battle of the cosmos. This time she transports and battles Pius at the same time. As he tries to kill her, the ancients are trying to kill each other in the cosmos, and she gets her shots in on him and is hitting the essence of that ancient. And then at that point, the spirit of Elia comes back into the fight and joins with her and gets a shot in on Pius. And eventually all the characters that have suffered or perished at Pius's hands throughout the tale come back and get their shot in on him. It's a really satisfying, epic moment. the end, Pius lies defeated, and Alex has a vision and realizes that the ancient that she summoned into the world to defeat the ancient in the cosmos will bring about its own destruction into our cosmos.
Is not so easily destroyed. No, my death is just the beginning.
What have I done?
Quickly, Alex! We must find this creature! It cannot be allowed to remain in this universe! It is finally over, my dear. The Ancients' plans are finished. For now, at least. You have proved to be an incredibly courageous young woman. Your mother and father would have been proud of you, just as I am. I'm sorry it had to be like this. It's not quite the inheritance I had in mind for you, but there was so little time, and so much to do. Goodbye, Alex. I will miss you.
Whew. So there. That's the story of Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. Oh, wait. Just if you're starting to think that I've told you the entire story and spoiled the whole thing for you, bear in mind that Eternal Darkness is meant to be played through multiple times and does some great things to incentivize multiple playthroughs. And it's only after 3 playthroughs, one each aligned with each of the Ancients, that you get the true secret ending and find out what's really been going on this whole time. Eternal Darkness has kind of an interesting development history. It was published in North America on June 24th, 2002, but it was initially revealed to the press at E3 1999, and it was originally a Nintendo 64 game.
Step back in time, into the darkness, 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 into eternal darkness for Nintendo 64. An ancient cathedral hides unspeakable evil. A mystery waits to be unraveled. Lives have been lost. More will be taken. Will the next be yours? Eternal Darkness for your Nintendo 64. Welcome to your darkest world.
Which was then switched over to the GameCube partway through development, with Silicon Knights acting as a second-party developer for Nintendo on the game, leading to the game being in development for a very long time. Additionally, that initial E3 showing initially showed an early level featuring Alex shooting zombies with a shotgun, which drew comparisons as if the game was a Resident Evil clone, which any sort of review of the story, the mechanics, will dispute. Some other interesting notes about the history of the development of Eternal Darkness: some cut characters. There's some evidence that there was a Knight Templar character in early builds, and even seen in promotional materials that was somehow removed. And that character may in fact still be in the game and be the character that could see Pius but wasn't playable and was instantly killed. And then there may have been a soldier character playable as well, and you can perceive that character may have ended up as the corpse that Michael ended up finding all the ammunition and weaponry on. On top of that, it was Nintendo's first M-rated game, and I'm not sure they quite knew how to promote it or handle it. I can remember some of the advertisements looking almost more like history lessons, rather than alluding to something that should be thrilling and exciting, with lots of combat gameplay, and the story we ended up with. As a result, and perhaps for other reasons, at the time of its release, Eternal Darkness had rather low sales, although it sort of had a long tail in terms of critical regard, and sort of became kind of a cult classic, followed by fanatical weirdos like me, I guess. In addition to that, Capcom would also release the Resident Evil remake in 2002 as well, which would really be the pinnacle of pre-rendered background games. And then in terms of graphical impact as a result of that, outstripped Eternal Darkness, which had started its development on the Nintendo 64, and certainly had a different focus in terms of what its development was trying to do. And the Resident Evil remake would then go on and inspire Resident Evil 0, and then at which point in 2005 Resident Evil 4 would come onto the GameCube and inspire a whole new regard for how horror games could be treated in terms of gameplay, which would then perpetuate on into the HD generation due to the sales of Resident Evil 4, and perpetuate on into Resident Evil 5 and into Resident Evil 6 and on into Dead Space and into Shadows of the Damned, and generally transformed the genre in the HD generation into a variant of the shooter genre, aiming, targeting, gun targeting gameplay. I mentioned that Eternal Darkness is designed to be very replayable. You see that in the gameplay. Each Ancient's alignment has different types of creatures that require different types of tactics, and some of them are unique to each playthrough. The combat itself is unique. The camera of the game is a third-person camera, but it's not an over-the-shoulder camera. It can be from dramatic camera angles, and it transitions from camera angle to camera angle smoothly. The control for the character is also analog, based on the analog stick of the GameCube. And this is accomplished by making the combat enabled through targeting. You don't have to target to do the combat, but you get a lot more options once you start targeting individual body parts on your enemy. You can target the head, the torso, or either of the arms. For example, just dealing with the basic zombie, the most common enemy in the game. On the Zelatoth model of the zombie, if you sever the limbs, there are phantom replacement for the limbs there, and seeing that costs you your sanity more. On the other hand, you can drop the zombies almost instantly with fire using a torch because they're mummified. The Bone Thieves on the Zelatoth side don't have heads, so you have to strike their body at least twice before you can cut them in half and knock them down. On the Chaturga side, the zombies, you can sever their limbs and they don't drop. You can sever them all the way down to just a headless, armless torso, and they will just stand there until they regrow their limbs, which they do, and come at you again, at which point you have to cut them off again. So you can slow them down and disable them. You can leave them headless with their arms still there, and they will strike out and hit each other sometimes, so you can strategically position them within a group to cause harm within other monsters within the group. And slow them down in that way. The Chaturga Bone Thieves, if you sever their head, they're instantly killed. On the Ulyaoth side, the zombies are sort of interesting. If you sever their heads, it prevents one of their special destructive abilities. If you don't sever their head and attack them normally, or sever their arm, etc., then they can initiate this singing stance, which will network with all the other Ulyaoth zombies around them and cause them to explode, which would give you massive damage if you were in the middle of it. The thing about Eternal Darkness and its sort of unique gameplay system that I think is a unique evolution that could have gone on into a whole subgenre much in the same way, is that it kept melee fun. When you're playing Resident Evil 4, you just got the wild knife swing. For example, beyond that, it's quick time events and the boulder punching of Resident Evil 5. If you look at the Dead Space series, the Dead Space series is the one that thought that it came up with strategic dismemberment.
And they won't stop coming until you take them apart limb by limb using strategic dismemberment. Unlike other games, shooting these creatures in the head and body won't kill them. In fact, doing so will probably piss them off and change their approach. Take their legs out, and they'll drag themselves towards you. Shoot off an arm, and they'll use their other arm to rip into you. Nope, the only real way to take these creatures out is to completely tear them apart, rip them to shreds, and then make sure you finish the job.
But once something got up close into melee range, it was just wild haymaker time. And you felt like the camera was pointed in the wrong direction, and the gameplay wasn't going the way you wanted it to go, and something jumped on you, and it was time to yammer on a button for a while. None of this happened in Eternal Darkness. As things were approaching you, yes, things got stressful, and you were managing the combat situation, but you were still in control, and could target where you needed to, and had full gameplay control of the melee situation up close, which is something unique and hasn't been duplicated. So the other interesting part of the gameplay in the combat mechanic is how it ties in with the magic, and then the magic mechanic is a separate, interesting, fascinating mechanic by itself. In combat, you end up using magical attacks. You can summon other creatures to support you. You can use a spell like Damage Field to enclose an enemy in a space they can't escape, or protect yourself in a space, or bind an enemy to your will so that they attack their enemies. But what you mostly end up doing is recovering sanity, health, whatever you can as you're fighting. The ancients in the game, the three ancients, have a rock, scissors, paper kind of alignment, and that ties into the magic primarily. So then the final gameplay system really that Eternal Darkness is most famous for to tell you about is the Sanity system. So in addition to a life meter and a magic meter, you have a sanity meter, and each time you see a new creature or a particular event happens with a creature, your sanity drains a little bit. And while that's happening in combat, each new appearing creature will take more sanity from you until your meter is empty, and then it actually starts to take health from you until at some point you are crazy to death, which is something that you will see in other games that have come since then. That Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth game will also involve crazy to death, and you'll see that in Elder Sign Omens, the card game on iOS as well. However, if you have a low sanity meter and you're not in combat, then what you can end up triggering are the very famous sanity events. And those can be completely unique. They can be in-world events that distort the character's perception, and then they'll really blow your mind when they turn out to be breaking the fourth wall and messing with your perception as a user of the system. And this will be kind of unique, strangely, after Eternal Darkness is released for a long time, until Batman Arkham Asylum will borrow the breaking the fourth wall insanity trick for one of its cutscenes many years later. The sanity events are creative, unique, surprising. They come up when you least expect it. They're one of the most fun part of the game, and you usually need multiple playthroughs to get them all, just as you need to get all the autopsies or to see all the creatures throughout the game. The way everything in the game is designed to entice you to play it through multiple times is kind of part of the theme of the game, revisiting locations multiple times, uncovering more each time, and uncovering the secrets of what's really going on. And that's part of what makes me refer to the game as a kind of a clockwork masterpiece, where every piece of it seems to be kind of a part of that thematic design, which for a video game in 2002 seems to be quite an accomplishment. That's why I'd like to see the spiritual successor to Eternal Darkness, called Shadow of the Eternals, get funded now on Kickstarter.
This can't be happening. This can't be happening.
Just visit shadowoftheeternals.com. You get your chance to contribute, join the order, and contribute towards the actual concept of this game. So, thanks for joining us for part 2 of my obsessive little special on Eternal Darkness. As I mentioned earlier in the video, you can check out part 1 for a background on Lovecraftian horror and Lovecraftian games. And then, God willing, I'll be able to put out a part 3 before the conclusion of this Kickstarter, highlighting Shadow of the Eternals, and what's exciting about that project and what's going on Kickstarter and their forums right now.
4.